All right. Welcome back. I'm Agent Ultra, and this is my stream where we do some recreational programming. We hack and learn and build stuff. And for the past little while, I've worked on a project to learn how to build a mud server. And we're learning how to do that in Haskell. There's a few things I wanted to learn while building this. I wanted to learn how to embed Lua into Haskell applications so you can script applications written in Haskell. And I also wanted to mess around more with Haskell's STM library and async support and all that sort of stuff. Multi-threading and concurrency and networking and all that stuff. So what better thing than a mud server? What is a mud server, you ask? It is a multi-user dungeon. It's like the precursor to MMOs from a while back. It's primarily text-based, but it is still real-time with multiple people playing at the same time as you. Yeah, last week we got the ability for we added a function to the Lua API for the game developer to use, which will let them set the avatar on the connection that the connected player is going to play as and use. This week, I think I am going to abstract out, or not abstract out, redesign a little bit some stuff. We have these two fields here on the connection. And that might be fine, maybe. Right, but connections come and go. And I feel like I want to make this more like a session. Because there might be more data we want to track about the game that the client is currently connected to and playing, but we don't necessarily want to like add all that stuff to the connection type. It's no longer about just the connection. It's about the connection and some game client state. So I'm thinking maybe I should pull that out. We call something like a session, and a session will have a reference to a connection. And a session will have this sort of game state data for the connected client. And then we can build off from there. So hopefully this will be a fairly small change, but a nice one. Let's create a little session module. Create a little data type for it. We're not using abstract data types there. Session, there. Grab these. Pop that over there. Just dump those out. I think we can grab that. And avatar, probably. Let's get some basic derivations going there. EQ and show instances. Let's get GHC ID running. Okay, so then we've just broken a bunch of things. We're going to get it to work. And that's how it goes in Haskell. So it's in mud code. Here. Okay, so we update the connection state, but we don't need to update the connection state anymore to set the avatar. We need to update the session. We also need to have a session to update. So that's going to be on the server state. All right, there's going to be several sessions. And then how are we going to look up the sessions? That's the other thing. So I think I might add like a server sessions. Server sessions map. Does this feel good? My brain's already tingling. Maybe I don't need that. Maybe we can just leave it on connection. Or the connection can have a reference to the session data. The server state's connection map is an S map, a SMAP map. Connection ID to connection. It's primarily on the network level, right? When we get some input on that connection, we have a connection ID. So we need to know which connections are associated with which sessions so that we can look up the session for that connection ID when we get input from it. That's kind of like the conundrum I'm having right now. All right. When you look up one, how do you find the other? So we could make the session map the same thing. Connection ID, maybe. Yeah, we can do an S map. Session like that. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's all right. Okay, and then we have to initialize that as well. The following convention: server state sessions map. All right. smap dot new IO. Boom. Server state sessions. Okay, no session in scope. That's okay. We haven't imported it yet. So let's do that now. Here looks good. Assertion. Okay, so the focus here now, we're implementing the set avatar function. Set avatar on the session, not on the connection. So the rest of this code looks fine. We just have to adjust what we're looking at. Have to update the right map. So we get a session. A sesh. Okay, not in scope. All right, so sesh is not even a scope. Let's fix that, and then it's session avatar ID, just avatar ID. Okay, and then the list avatars function has to look at a different map as well. Ooh, we also need to fix this code up and like de-nest some of this stuff. We wrote some helpers last week that should do that. We can use them again here. Let's just get this code compiling first and do the refactor we're focusing on, then we'll go do that after. So instead of maybe connection, we're going to look up in sessions. Where's sessions coming from? Sorry, connections. Okay, yeah. Change that to sessions. This should be session. This is maybe session. And we get the account ID from it. Right, then we look up the avatars for that account ID and everything's fine. And 108 here. Setting the avatar. Should call it session. Type mismatch. Could match connection with session. Expected session to session. Actual connection session to connection. Oh, because we're returning a connection. Okay, and yes, this is one of our helpers here. Require account ID. So this is going to change to session's got to be a type. And we get sessions account ID there. Pure account ID, pretty straightforward for that one. And do we use connection for anything else in here? Set avatar. No, it looks like so. We can just change that to session. Almost exactly the same as that one. I might just leave that there in case I need it. I don't know, maybe we should get rid of it. And connections, we want sort of state sessions. And there as well. Here. That returns a type of session. That covers mud code, I think. Server. .hs now. Okay, this is where we change the auth state. So we have to change the auth state for the connection. Then we also have to update the state for the session, which is separate now. So we'll get rid of that there. That'll fix this error, but we still have to have an update session state in order to make this proper. Session to session. All right, well, it'll be a session where the session account equals account ID. Is it account ID or account? Why are you hanging, Emacs? Just save that. Let me look at the diff. Yeah, just ID. Okay. That's all I needed. Okay, and then session's not in scope, so let's bring that one in. We'll put it here. Simulation. You shouldn't have any code changes. That's probably something else. It's probably me just farting around. Let's see. Back to server. So, session. So you have to call the update session state. Update the session state there with the connection ID on the sessions map. And the sessions map we'll bring into scope here with server state sessions. Oh, update session states applied to too few arguments. Oh, it is, yes. We'll call it update session focus. Focus dot adjust. And we change that here. And moving on. The network level. Okay, network server. We're almost right in there. Okay, next connection ID. We don't need these nothings anymore there. And then we're all good. We compile again. Okay. create a commit for that. WordPress. When applied, this change will add session. I think I gotta update the Kabbalah file actually to add that module. Ooh, okay, we should probably fix that. It's a Bakamud server. We haven't used account. Yeah, we actually don't need that parameter. So let's get rid of it. Then change the focus here. There. Type error there. Okay. Okay, so that should break out the session into those variables there. And I think everything should just work. So if you haven't seen it before, let me just fire up the server. And run you through what we got so far. Okay, server's running. Let's get our client going. It's little client program. Okay, connect to the server. And then we can log in. Say it's Shakabaka here. No characters. Ooh. Oh, right. I was messing around with some Lua code. Crashed the Xeon server. So I think everything is going to work there just fine. Let's, what I'm trying to do here. Why do we get a crash on this? Is it just that particular user? Error. Bugs? Oh. Something with the Lua code. Okay, there's a problem there. Possibly with list avatars? No, calling on login. Okay, so in here, we did change this, so Something in here is not being handled properly. Yep, okay. That is what it is. So all our on login is doing this part works, that part works. Line 6 here maybe might be where it's dying. Maybe input connection. Let's check the database. Bakamud.db. Everything's still there. Okay, got all our avatars. Oh boy. All right, let's try it now. Let's see if we get that "oh boy" string when we connect and log in. Oh, no, I think it's going to be in list avatars. Okay. No problem. Something in here. Server sessions. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, there is. I know what the issue is now. This server sessions map is going to be empty, so we're going to get. What are we going to get? We're going to get one of these errors around here. Possibly something like this. Probably here. So that's, we gotta update the network server. And when we get a connection, we gotta add it to the connection map as well, the session. Here. So like a connection, we'll have add session. Non-add IO M there with connection ID and Bakamud server action there. Let's get the sessions map. The server state sessions and same here. So it has to be a little bit different. An alter focus. We just need overwrite the session if we get a reconnect. Although if we have a session here in the map and these are disconnects, we lose the connection, but they reconnect. They would probably get a different connection ID, so that session would be floating there by itself. And it would need to be garbage collected. Which is something we should remember to do. I should also adjust this mic a little bit, yeah. So it's not tilting away too much. Hopefully that's good for you. Okay, so focuses, what kind of other focuses do I get? Insert focus, insert new key value map, the key is already present. Yeah, if the key is already present, the associated value is replaced with supply value. Okay, I think that's what we want. Call it new session. Type of that. This is going to be something. Let's get GHCID running. So new session wants. What is it going to be? Session? Yeah, we need that in there and scope. Call it insert focus. Oh, okay, it just needs to be session. Cool. All right. That's all we need. All right, we're just going to insert a new, we're just going to overwrite and insert a session for that. So I think in the background of this, I'm going to have to add something to the to-do list to like have a garbage collector for cleaning up lost orphaned sessions. Since they're kind of both connected to the connection ID. Potentially also connections. Okay, there we go. So this should get everything working now. So we could Cabal run, get the server up. And get back to where we were. So let's log in as Bakamud. There we go. So that's back and working now. We got session in scope. Everything's good. And then I can choose one. I picked one, and we should be connected now, and our session should be updated with the avatar ID now. So not the account ID and the avatar ID for that session associated to the connection. All right, so this is where we're at now, and now we need to be able to do more stuff. We just got to keep rolling here. All right, we have some of the basics we need to get a user like logging into the game. All right, we've got the login system. We've got a way for the game designer to like let them select characters, create their own little selection menu, and implement that, and then a way to update the session state for that user by associating their selected character to the session for this connection. I think now we've got the pieces in place that we can start looking again at maybe the ECS system and start working on the simulation, and being able to send like updates on server ticks to the user who's sitting there behind their client waiting for updates to happen. So this change, let's just create a little commit for this. Yeah. Okay, we can rebase this interactively, squash these up, reword this. Yeah, that's not an interesting change. Yep. And then, yeah, the Lua commands changed a little bit, right? Ah, forget it. So that's all good. That's a little too much detail. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Now we have the infrastructure in place to be able to send updates from the simulation on a server tick to a user. All right. most of this, hopefully, is going to be done through the ECS system on the Haskell side, at least for things like mob interactions. And like other game thingies, but the game designer is also going to want to like hook into this simulation. So they should have like a on-tick event or something. I think. We can certainly implement it. What would they do with an on-tick event? So let's look at our mud code and try to sketch something out here. We have like an on-login event, for example. Now, on-tick as input, it's probably not going to get anything. Alright, now what can we put in here? Alright, this is basically going to run once per tick on the server, which is like almost like one run of our game loop. Right. Well, using what we have so far, we can't just put connection to something because we don't have a particular put connection ID in this event. So could we put something on... What could we do? We could broadcast something. Have a new API function. Like, hello from the on-tick event handler. I'm going to implement this, make this work. What else do we need to do? Oh, we also need to be able to, like, when I lock in as a user, right, I want to be able to, like, have more commands. Like, look. Look is a common command most servers will implement. Right, and that should just, like, look at my surroundings as if I was the character and explain the room that I'm in. It's not an actual command, but I should be able to type, like, look. To look in my current room. That's another thing. So why don't we implement the look command instead of this? That's going to be, this is probably going to involve a bunch of work. Because we have to associate the avatar with a particular place on the map in order to implement look. Right? What's up, Chexor? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Hope you are well. All right, so if we're trying to implement the look command, we need to find the room that the avatar is currently in for this connection. All right, so I'd probably want like what? Get room. Well, I'm gonna have to use the connection ID probably. The history of logarithms. Oh boy. Tables and tables of wonderful facts. Yeah, so the get room connection ID, then we can look up this in the session for the avatar ID, and then presumably do a bunch of lookups into the current, well, I guess the location, the current room, and then we return some kind of object that has like some room data. And then we want to send out the room description. To that connection ID. Now this is where we want another function, I would say. I want to be able to have like templates. So like some kind of format function we'd provide with like the room template. Something like that. That looks kind of like reasonable-ish Lua code, maybe. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. So we need a get room command. We need a format command. What language would I say Lua is most like? It's sort of like a Pascal light, maybe. A little bit JavaScripty. But the one-based indexing, the kind of like keyword heaviness of it. If, then, end. Pascal-ish. It is definitely very like almost Pythonic in as well, like in the fact that like everything's a table. Whereas in like Python, a lot of things are dictionaries or hash maps. Yeah. Let's, yeah, Pascal. Same example. Yeah, I see like these keywords like begin, end, that kind of thing. You got your if. Okay, then begin. And like it doesn't have the end for the ifs, but like some of them do, depending on how you write it. Similar-ish in that regard. Also, if I remember correctly, a lot of Pascal arrays are one-indexed. Yeah, by default, they're indexed by 1, although you can have 0 indexed arrays, but you have to be explicit and use them. Yeah, so I would say Lua is fairly Pascal-ish with some JavaScript / Python influence. What was Lua influenced by? It's created in 93. So Lua's predecessors were the data description configuration languages, simple object language, and data entry language. Interesting. No association to Pascal, potentially. So maybe it was just a coincidence that it looks Pascal-ish to me? Yeah, no mention of it. Yeah, that's what it feels like to me anyway, but I don't know what those languages are. Simple object language and data entry language. Oh, like proprietary languages for a particular project at a particular company at a particular point in time. No wonder. TCL, yeah, I could see TCL. Oh, the Lua syntax controls are mostly borrowed from Modula, which is a descendant of the Pascal language, so that's probably where it comes from there. Yeah. Yeah, Lua semantics increasingly influenced by schema over time. Anonymous functions and full lexical scoping. Yeah, that's probably also similarly JavaScript-ish. So, interesting little diversion. Thanks, Chexor. Okay, so implementing Haskell, the API, the Lua API that we're going to be doing all that sort of stuff. Let's shut down the server. Let's go to the mud code module. Put list avatar, set avatar. So we're going to put a new one here. I'm going to call it get room. Yeah, we need an error on this, right? Constraint, because it's Haskell function E, I believe is the type. And we get a server state. Okay, it's fire up GHCID. Okay, so from here, we're going to get the connection ID as argument. Chexler says that he hasn't used or read Pascal or TCL. Ah, well. Were you programming in the 90s or early aughts? I mean, you might still have managed to avoid them if you were, but... yeah. I mean, even back then they weren't, like, the most popular, but they were still around. Pascal was probably bigger in the 90s. 80s. 80s as well. It's still around. There's still some good IDEs for it too, if you're curious. Odinling has taken a big inspiration from that, from Pascal as well. It's like very influenced by it. Ode is a pretty interesting little language. I think one of the distinctions too that like I haven't seen in many other programming languages that happens in Pascal and Pascal-like languages is a separation between function and procedure. It's similar to like I/O in Haskell even, in that a procedure is something that does side effects in Pascal-like languages, whereas a function is pure, so it has no side effects. So I'm going to try and adjust this again. This little mic stand is... Yeah, figure it out later. I don't make too much racket for you. But yeah, Odinling, there's, for like Pascal, there's Lazarus. Disputed whatever the heck you are. You are banned and reported. There. And yeah, Delphi, Lazarus, all that sort of stuff. They were really like big into like building the language along with the tooling, like the IDE and everything. Kind of in the Smalltalk tradition as well. It's very cool stuff. Screenshots. There you go. So like a lot of the Pascal IDEs had like platform specific like GUI editors built into the IDE and all that sort of stuff, so you can make desktop applications super quick with them. They had a lot of benefits for that. I think it's kind of cool. Odin kind of follows the same tradition too, by like vendoring in and packaging a bunch of libraries to make it super easy to do graphics applications and stuff. Something I kind of would like for like some kind of Haskell distribution, I think would be really nice to package something together like that. Yeah, Visual Basic had the same thing too, so you kind of get it, right? I wasn't on the TI-86. I don't know. I was on the TI-86. It's a graphing calculator. Never got in on these. It's running a Zilog Z80 though. Nice. Pretty sick. Ah, nice. You put your formulas in your TI-86 and then you can just push a button and get your answers, see? Pretty handy. Calculators. I did a... I don't know if I did it on... I did maybe a couple streams on it, but I built an emulator for something called Chip 8 in Zig. And that reminded me that I think somebody ported a Chip 8 interpreter. It wasn't to the TI-86, it was to like one of those graphing calculators that you could run code on. Yeah, too smart. You gave me a calculator. It's too late. You shouldn't have done this. Yeah, so let's get our connection ID from the arguments. Maybe we'll just like do some random IO here. Oh, what happened to my Emacs? It died, I don't know why. Something was going on there. It was starting to like lock up a little bit. Maybe I'll steal the file. There we go. Okay, fine. It's how to try and... I was a big Vim user for a long time before I switched to Emacs. I think at this point, though, it would be hard to go back. I think I've been using Emacs longer than I've been using Vim. When I switched to Vim, I think I'd been using it for about 10 years. And then... Or when I switched to Emacs, I'd been using Vim for about 10 years. That was probably like 2008 or so. So I've been using Emacs for 18 years. No, can't be that much. Let's see, 10 to be 2018. 12. Yeah, maybe about 18 years. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a programming system. It's kind of like those IDEs. It's an eLisp environment that happens to have a text editor built into it and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, you can have like trees of undos and stuff like that. I don't use most of it, but it is possible. But yeah, the bindings for it are a little bit, you gotta learn all that stuff. They're just baked into my system now. Fortunately, there are a lot of UIs, desktop systems that are also like, they use Emacs bindings by default, like on Mac OS and stuff. And quite a few Linuxes. So like text editing on the command line and stuff. In text fields on like GUIs and whatnot. Pretty useful. So get room. Did I just blow your mind, Checksor? So yeah, connection ID, and then what else is going to need? This is going to need to look up the avatar, I guess, in the session to find out the avatar, and then like, it's going to have to do some other stuff we haven't implemented yet, like, putting avatars on the actual map and like looking up where that avatar is in the map so that we can return the room, but we're going to have to get to that. Yeah, the Vim keybind for delete backwards word. Yeah. Yeah, I think most terminals also do Emacs bindings, or if they don't, it's pretty easy to implement. I'm gonna do flah. Yeah, the Emacs bindings work here. One character at a time, one word at a time. Here's jump around. Delete the whole line. That's the same key binding as in Emacs. As well as like, yeah, forward and backward through the history and stuff. So, pretty useful. It's like a lot of the early hackers were Emacs users and kind of like repeated that. Some of those basic key bindings in a lot of UI environments and a lot of readline environments and stuff like that. And next step users were probably big Emacsers. I don't know about that one though. That might be a little bit more advanced. I think it's just the basic motion ones. Is there Emacs key binding combo for that? Maybe. I probably don't know it. Like, let's delete word. Or forward. Something, I don't know. Maybe. Probably. You can implement it easily, though, if it didn't exist, and keybind it. Yeah, I don't know. Now you got me curious. I'm gonna look it up. It does. I think Vim does too, if I'm not mistaken, but Emacs's is better. Yeah. So let's get the avatar. So we're gonna have to give it a parameter, probably the connection ID, to look into the map. And then let's maybe just put strlen. And we'll just show the avatar. Like that. Now, when we implement this command, if, like, the avatar can obviously return, it's maybe in our data structure in the session, right? Which means it might not exist if the user has been logged in, for example, but hasn't chosen an avatar yet. I would say it's a fair shake that the get room function should require the avatar ID. Because there'd be no way we could complete its behavior otherwise. Yeah, okay, so that's what we'll do. Create a little helper for that. Oh, we get valid session. Can we get it from there? No. We'll even go a little bit deeper here. Server state, we get the connection ID. We return a Lua API action with the avatar ID. Or we die trying. So we'll get the session using that helper, get valid session. Connection ID. And then we get maybe avatar by looking in the S map. So we have to do our atomic transaction. Nope, we don't have to do that. The session's going to do that. We just have maybe avatar, so we just case match on the session avatar. And if we have nothing, then we fail. Otherwise, sorry, not session avatar. Yeah, okay, that should all work. Let's make sure it compiles, so. Oh, I'm in the wrong direction. It's probably already running, isn't it? Yeah. I'll use the server state. And we got a lift IO that call. Okay. Sessions imported. Oh, it's avatar ID, isn't it? There we go. I'm gonna call get avatar ID though. In fact, I'm going to call following the convention that require avatar ID, so we know it's like super serial. There we go. Let's run it. Okay, so that's get room. Oh, actually, no, we still have a few more steps here. Here, what am I doing? Getting ahead of myself here. Just gotta export it. Now it's part of the Lua API, so that's implemented. And the other part, in order to actually call this look command, would be format. Although I'm going to say maybe we comment that out for a second, because format's going to take me a minute to understand here. Let's just see if this works. Build around the server. How did I close our client? I did. Bring her back. Connect. To login. Invalid login. Sorry, that's. Okay. Cool, whatever. We should be able to look. Okay, we got Avatar ID 1. That's what I was expecting. Good, good. Oh, weird. That shouldn't close. Client. Oh, because I was running it that way. That's okay. There we go. Okay. Good. Yeah. So we got Avatar ID there as expected. Okay. Now in the look at room. All right. We got to return a room. Right. I don't know. Do we have we defined? I think we've defined that maybe. Space. Room. Right. Room's got a name, a description, some exits. Shakespeare says you can tell a lot about a person by the books on their bookshelf. Yeah, I think so. If they have bookshelves these days. And by the monads. Oh, don't judge me by the monads in this stack. You want to see those? They're pretty brutal. It's not huge. It's a very, very small stack, actually. But, like it's just a reader T. But getting a multi-threaded networked application running with the reader T pattern, I think is probably the messiest part of this code. I'm not super satisfied with it. Maybe it's just a skill issue, like maybe it's me, I don't know. And there's better ways to structure this, but it's kind of, the part that's janky though is forking, bracketing threads and things like that. So if I want to run something in Bakamud server, I had to write all this kind of like fork stuff. Fork finally and stuff all runs in IO at the lower level. We end up using this in just a couple of places in order to do brackets and stuff when we're running in the Bakamud reader T, because the reader T has the configuration for the server and stuff like that. In the network layer. So like when we get a new connection, we're forking the Bakamud here, forking a thread for that connection. Things like that. Right, we're bracketing these sockets. All right, so we clean up the sockets when the connection is closed and things like that. But we had to write all the bracket stuff is not a transformer, right? It doesn't fit in a transformer stack. There's no bracket T that I could find. There's resource T, but there's no bracket T. So I was trying to get it to work with like all this low level kind of like Haskell-y stuff. And ended up having to write my own functions to get it to actually work because I couldn't lift IO these brackets inside the Bakamud. It's just, yeah. So it's kind of the nastiest part of this. I don't like it a whole lot code-wise, but it's fairly small in surface area, so I don't have to deal with it too much. So ultimately, this is the data structure we want to get from the get room thing and like kind of marshal it over to the Lua side, I guess, and that sort of thing. Now the monad code, I want to be able to actually look up in the map data structure for this room based on the avatar. But for now, just to get the thing to kind of like return some room data, we can hard code one. Yeah, MTL. This is MTL, like using MTL. Reader T is an MTL type class. Yeah, and it's a pain in the ass, yeah. I mean, you get used to the pattern and like how it works, and you kind of build an intuition for it over time. But it does have quite a few limitations and some trade-offs, I find. One of them being like, for example, you can't split your... You can have two reader T's, for example, like some configuration for one part of your application and some configuration for another. Because of the way lifting works, it would get confused. Same with state and some of the others. You can have like one layer of one thing in a stack. Oh, as many as you want. Right. And as long as all the specializations are written for all of those classes, you're good to go. And it's actually fairly efficient. Yeah, once you get to a few, it's a bit much. There's a lot of folks that recommend like just the reader T pattern, which is kind of what this is going out around and doing. So there's like a whole bunch of it. You can Google it. A bunch of people have probably written about it by now. But the other thing to look into is like effect systems. F would be one, things like that. So they do kind of get around some of the limitations of MTL. But they can be more difficult to use in some cases because the type errors you can get out of them can be pretty whoa. Right, and it's a lot to get into, like even, I think maybe even more than monad transformers. But the benefit of them is that they are a little bit more composable in some ways. Some of them might be boasting better performance than MTL on more recent GHCs due to some new compiler stuff. This is EFF, screaming fast effectable effects. So let's take a look, right? So you can define your effect systems using, like, I guess like an generalized algebraic data type. And you provide implementations for those. Right, so an implementation of a function called readFile, right, which takes your file system effect and does stuff with F. So you can see the types get a little bit, yay, already. You have to run it, so you have to write your interpreter for each of those effects. And then you can run file system. So the neat thing about it is you can write different interpreters and then switch those interpreters out for different, and then your code doesn't have to change, but you can change the implementation underneath. Right, so if you wanted to write a virtual file system for like testing purposes, you could write one for that's like pure using like a writer monad or something like that. You could change the interpreter that gets run, and then your code doesn't have to change when it's using those effects. You can just use them as if they were real, and then you change them. For a while, effect systems were kind of slowish, and I still think they're a little bit experimental. Most of the libraries are like under construction and in work, so I don't know if you would use them in a production system, unless you're just, you know, living life. But they're pretty cool, yeah. And there was somebody who was doing one with an effect system and Raylib, and they were kind of combining the two into like a game engine, which seemed pretty neat. I haven't checked that out yet, but all right, so we could, how much time we got? A little bit of time. Just work on the marshalling part of that room records. Here, we'll return like a hard-coded room, just so we can see if we can get it working across the Lua boundary. And then we'll just have to implement the lookup in the room, maybe like the in-memory database for the map and stuff like that. The in-memory data structure for the map. Which I think I started on like fairly early on in the series of streams. So we'll see if I have done that yet or not. And we'll get to that next week. Yeah, so let's make sure we got, let's actually create a little, where are we at? Code-wise get room. Okay, we'll work in progress this. Okay, and then we're going to import Bakamud server space, or simulation space. That's where room is. It won't be redundant for long, GHCID. Because we're going to have to put that on the stack somewhere. So let's create a test room. By description. A very cool room with many florid adjectives. Yes. Okay, and then we got to use it. Put a hole there. Did I write stuff to Marshall records generically? No. But we have this Lua.push list. So let's do that again. So we got to push. Yeah, the room has a name. So push the room name. The room has a description. And The room has a list of exits. We'll pass in test room to that. Right. So we have to define these functions. Comme ça. That's going to take a room. That's going to be description. And exits next. No, we don't want to push lists, sorry. Just the table, please. And we'll have to pass in the test room to each of these, maybe. In which case, there's a clever way to write this, but I'm just going to do it the long way, silly way. The just fine way. Clean it up later. No. Your reading of logarithms history is complete. Was it a long history? Yep. Good old logs. Okay, push map as default key value Lua table. We could push a map. Yeah, push his table. Oh, it's a test room, not the, I shouldn't put the argument there. Is that the problem? I gotta give the A, yeah, so it's gotta have test room as an argument here. Oh, see like that. Okay, there we go. Good. It's just a summary of notation. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we get a lot ever since Leibniz and algebra and all that stuff started happening. You know, people got cray with the notation. So putting the room name should be pretty easy. Space. I did prefix it as room name, so we want a Lua push text. Get the room description here. Separatrix is a word, apparently. I didn't know that, Chicksar. Separatrix. Punctuation mark used to separate related items of information. A list, was it? Push list. And that's going to be a list of text from room exits. Although we might have to map. Oh, text is fine. Okay, I thought they might be objects or other records, but that's good. Okay, so that works. Great. So we should be able to push a room. So on the Lua side now, if this all marshaled properly, we should be able to like print room dot name, room dot description, room dot exits, say, run the server, and then when we run the look command, it should just do that. Okay, cool. All right, table, it's gonna print out, because that's pushed as a list as a table, but like everything's a table in Lua. But yeah, so there we go. There's our very cool room with many Florida adjectives. Marshaled across to Lua. Lua's printing that out. Great. So it means we can get a room back from there. As long as we can do the lookup and return a room, we can marshal it out, and you get this line will work. But we're out of time for this week. So we have to wrap this up, format everything, put out a commit, and do all that stuff. Okie doke. Or maybe we keep in a session variable for like what room the avatar is currently in. Whatever the case may be. We're going to implement that next week. So we got, yeah, we added marshalling of rooms. Okay, let's look at that. We'll rebase this interactively. Squash that, reword that. Work in progress. Can get arguments and return a test room to Lua. Good. Mantissa, yeah. Yeah, we've also, in computer science, in computer engineering, maybe, borrowed the term Mantissa in floating point numbers. But it's also used in logarithm, which is great, and super, super great. Yeah, the fractional part, yeah. Well, maybe it's the same thing. Or, like, conceptually, maybe the same thing or similar. And that's why they borrowed it. Yeah, Chexer. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for showing up and chatting with me and hanging out. And anybody else lurking who hasn't been chatting, thanks for lurking. All the code you've seen tonight is for a project called Bakamud. We're learning how to build a MUD server in Haskell and scripting that MUD server using Lua and using Haskell's brilliant and wonderful multi-threading capabilities. It's software transactional libraries, software transactional memory libraries, so on and so forth. And just having fun hacking and learning and hacking on stuff and building things. Like I said, that's what we do. All this code lives up on GitHub. I'm Agent Ultra. I'm also Agent Ultra on GitHub. And on the Fediverse on Mastodon. I'm on the types.pl server. So, check out the code if you want. If you want to learn more, hang out, give it a star, whatever, follow along. I usually do these streams once a week. My regular time is on Tuesday evenings at about 10 after 8 in the Eastern time zone. So if you want to just write that down and tune in next week, that would be great. Or, if you follow me here on Twitch and set up your notifications, you get notified when I go online with my streams. So that's also another way. I also do, it might also be worth doing that because I also sometimes do random streams throughout the week for other coding projects as I feel like it. So if you want to come hang out for those, follow. And if you're watching the backup of my VODs on YouTube, you know what to do there as well. Like you just like and subscribe and thumbs up and all that stuff, leave a comment, whatever. And you'll get notified when I post new videos and new streams. So check that out. I'm also on the types.pl server, as I mentioned. You can follow me there for updates on this stream, general programming nonsense, and occasionally other things. And what else? Declarative.tv. Yes, the link above my head. Go to that site. It's got schedules and updates from streamers who are doing things in other declarative programming languages that include Haskell, but also languages like Erlang and, I don't know, things of that ilk, if you will. And they're looking for an audience. There's also a link to a Discord server on that site. And there's a channel for this stream. So if you didn't get the chance to chat, or if you're watching from the VODs and you want to come hang out with us, go down the Discord server and come hang out with us. What else? I think that's all I got. So thanks again for hanging out. Odin, yes, go check out Odin Lang. It's pretty cool. May all your monads be free. Your types always check. Happy hacking out there. And take care.